We begin worship the same way every Sunday morning with number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Perhaps you know it, friends. And I'll invite you to rise and body your spirit as you're willing and able. And Sarah will share the words in the chat, but it's also in your hardback hymnal.
The flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism identity. Lighting the chalice signals the entry of this gathered community into a sacred space. Bodhi Day serves as a reminder that amid all the hustle and bustle of this season, it reminds us to pause, to center down, reconnect with the inner wisdom that is available to all of us, and to practice mudita, which is appreciative joy. As we light our chalice today, hear these words from the Buddha. Let us live in joy, not hating those who hate us. Among those who hate us, we live free of hate. Let us live in joy, free from disease among those who are diseased. Among those who are diseased, let us live free of disease. Let us live in joy, free from greed among the greedy. Among those who are greedy, we live free of greed. Let us live in joy, though we possess nothing. Let us live feeding on joy, like the devas. And now, in our free tradition, the boundaries of our community are determined by commitment and participation rather than a creed. Our covenant, which is a promise that we make to each other regarding how we will be as a community of faith, is part of what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. I invite you to recite our covenant with me. It's adapted from the original written by James Villa Blake in 1894, and Sarah has shared the words on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, the quest for truth, our sacrament. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another believe more fully in life. Spanish is the second most common language spoken in the United States, and we acknowledge this and the people who brought it to us by reciting the covenant together in Spanish. Please join me, reading the words on the screen. El amor es el espíritu de nuestra iglesia, la búsqueda de la verdad, nuestro sacramento. Y esto es nuestro gran acuerdo, que convivamos en paz, que busquemos la verdad en el amor y que nos ayudamos uno al otro a creer más en la vida.
Good morning, friends. My name is Reverend Juniper Meadows. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a tall, curly-haired woman with a blue dress and a rainbow shawl with a clergy stole with a Luna moth on it. It's my pleasure to serve as your settled minister here at Second Unitarian Church of Omaha. I have a reading, friends, from Yogi Prabodha Jnana, the Lamp of Wisdom, poem of reverence for the awakened one. And he writes, homage to you, the awakened one, the brilliant lamp of prajna, the gentle breeze of compassion, peace that spread in every stride. You showed the way of Bodhi. Your speech, the drops of insight, settles the veil of confused minds like alum cleansing a muddled lake, to the pristine glow of clarity, to the cool aroma of peace within. Those lost in rituals and thoughts and the pursuit of unseen gods and the jargons of presumptions and the darkness of mental sinking, you woke them to a mindful presence, breaking free from traditions with caring words of reason. You subdued the wandering mind, setting ablaze the way of Bodhi, the spirit of seeing beyond dogmas. You forewent the kingdom in search of a way to wipe the pain of masses rising beneath the Bodhi tree. You became a lord, the beautiful groves that kings offered in every kingdom that you walked. You turned them into gardens of peace, free from the venom of caste and creed, cradles of human awakening. You lit the lamp of wisdom in a million hearts that blazed as the light of Asia, the light that spreads today, lighting hearts around the world. Homage to you, the lamp of wisdom. May we realize the Buddha within. May we become the nectar of kindness that cures the heart of countless beings. May reason and kindness prevail in the world. Amen. So may it be. Well, I had written a summary of the Buddha, but that was a wonderful telling. But to tell it again, Siddhartha Gautama, who would become the Buddha, was born in Lumbini, the modern-day Nepal, around the 5th or 6th century BCE. He's an historical figure. And it's also a symbolic life that offers us gleanings onto the nature of suffering and the path of liberation. He was born into a royal family, as we heard, and he was given everything because his father was greeted by a soothsayer who told him, your son will either be a great king or a great holy man. And his father clearly had an idea for what he wanted his son to do. So he tried to curate his life by keeping him away from the world outside, which to me sounds like no way to raise a king, someone detached, right? So Siddhartha lives this life of absolute luxury. It's kind of like growing up in a Chuck E. Cheese, I can imagine, or something. And one day he begins to wonder and begins to pine after the world. He gets married, he has a child, but he finds himself stifled with all of this novelty. Perhaps you've gotten a new thing that's very cool, but eventually it gets old, and eventually things grow old, and we begin to suffer even if we're surrounded by the riches of the world. Trust that the wealthy suffer in their own way, possibly in a tragic, soul-sickening way sometimes. But this was happening to Siddhartha. And so Siddhartha conspired with a servant to sneak out of the castle, and he went on the road, and there he beheld the four sights. The four sights. The Buddha first encounters, and no offense to our elders in the congregation, but he didn't know, he encounters an old man. And he asks his servant, what is up with this person? What is that? And the servant looks at him, it's like, that's an old man. Everyone gets old, you're gonna get old. I'm gonna get old. And they go down the road a little further and they encounter someone with a malady, someone with an affliction, someone who's very ill. And the Buddha says, oh, what is this? And his servant says, this is a sick person. Everyone gets sick once in a while. They go down a little further and they find the body of a dead man on the side of the road. And the Buddha stops and pauses and he says, what is this? And his servant says, everybody eventually dies. Everything eventually dies. And they go a little further down the road and they see a man in robes with a staff walking mindfully, steadily, his eyes to the earth, perhaps a prayer on his lips. And the Buddha says, who is this? And his servant says, this is a wandering ascetic seeking to free the world from suffering. And from that day on, the Buddha, the man who would become the Buddha, I should say, knew what he had to do. And he thought long and hard about it, but ultimately did leave his family to pursue this ascetic life, to break the chains of dukkha. Dukkha is the Pali word for what we often translate in the West as suffering. That's maybe not the best translation. Dukkha might also be understood as frustration, dis-ease. My Buddhism teacher, Reverend Arvid Strad in seminary, told us that one good translation is like it's a bummer, you know. Life isn't 100% characterized by suffering. Siddhartha knew this. So he's not saying that all of life and everything is suffering. If you've heard Buddhism characterized this way, that's a false characterization. But life is characterized by dukkha, by this kind of suffering that is born from our attachments. And this part of the realization didn't come to Siddhartha immediately. As the video noted, Siddhartha went through a long time of searching, throwing proverbial spaghetti at the wall, trying all kinds of things, starving himself, harming himself, ultimately coming to the conclusion that awakening does not come from self-mortification nor self-indulgence, and then arrives at the middle way. And holding that middle way and becoming assured in it, he does sit beneath the Bodhi tree, telling his followers that I will not rise until I have reached awakening. And in that vision, Siddhartha encountered Mara. Mara is the tempter who tried to distract Siddhartha with fear and desire and doubt, but Siddhartha remained steadfast, touching the earth as a witness to his resolve. Perhaps you have seen many different kinds of Buddhist statues, some like a laughing large Buddha. There's a common statue many people have seen of a man with an interesting hairstyle which have a name that, goodness gracious, I'm forgetting right now, friends. He is sitting, but most importantly, what I mean to say is you might notice, this is subtle, but his right hand is over his knee and it is touching the ground. This is the mudra of earth touching. And it is from this gesture that Siddhartha calls upon the earth itself to bear witness to the countless lifetimes of effort and virtue that Siddhartha had accumulated on his path towards awakening. The earth, as the silent and eternal witness, responded with a thunderous acknowledgement, affirming Siddhartha's right to attain enlightenment. And at this moment, Mara was defeated, and Siddhartha transcended the illusions of the material and egotistical world, attaining the profound state of Buddhahood, of awakening, realizing first and foremost the interconnection that he shares with everything, the recognition of the earth as the earth, right? This is the fundamental understanding of Buddhism, that there is no real separation between you and me, especially in particular forms of Buddhism, which we'll talk about shortly. Siddhartha's determination was not the determination of just one life. In many understandings of the mythology of Buddhism, and Buddha in particular, as Siddhartha had been doing this for a long time, billions of lifetimes. They said more than one life. Many Buddhists think it takes countless lives of effort and striving in order to achieve Buddhahood. There's so many ways to approach it. There have been so many proliferations of Buddhism, but for the next 45 years, the Buddha travels across India, teaching people of all castes and all walks of life his teachings known as the Dharma, revealing the Four Noble Truths, which is, of course, life is marked by dukkha, a bummer, a disease, a frustration, a dissatisfaction. And then 2, dukkha arises from craving and attachment. Now, again, it is not as though all of life is pain, but that through greed and hatred and delusion, this is where we come to harm ourselves and one another. And these 3, greed, hatred, and delusion, these are known as the 3 poisons. But then 3, dukkha, can be overcome. The Buddha calls on seekers to take refuge in the 3 jewels, which are the Buddha, not a personality cult so much, but the possibility of becoming Buddha and escaping the cycle of suffering, along with the Dharma, which are the collected teachings and practices, and the Sangha, which is the community of spiritual support. And then 4, the Eightfold Path leads to liberation. This is the middle way. So it moves between self-indulgence and self-mortification. The Eightfold Path calls the seeker to the following: right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And at the age of 80, the Buddha passes away in Kushinagar, entering nirvana, the final state of liberation beyond the cycle of life and death. His last words to his disciples were a reminder of his own impermanence, saying, "All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence." His teachings, while universal, have branched off with the Bodhi tree, evolving over the years into distinct traditions. For example, the Theravada Buddhism, the teaching of the elders. This is the oldest surviving form of Buddhism. It's, again, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, and focuses on the earliest scriptures called the Pali Canon, many, many, many times bigger than the Bible or other religious texts we may approach. The Pali Canon is vast. The individual's journey towards enlightenment through ethical conduct, meditation, and wisdom are central in Theravada. And practitioners often strive to become arahats, or those who achieve liberation from the cycle of rebirth. So they are trying to get off of samsara. And then there's Mahayana Buddhism, meaning the great vehicle. Mahayana emphasizes compassion, the collective liberation of all beings. Central to this tradition is the ideal of the bodhisattva. You can see an example of a bodhisattva here. This is Kuan Yin. Down here, bodhisattva of compassion. The idea of a bodhisattva is someone who delays their own enlightenment to assist others on their spiritual journey. Mahayana traditions flourish in China, Korea, and Japan, and they often incorporate more expansive cosmologies and practices the veneration of celestial Buddhas and bodhisattvas. Vajrayana Buddhism is related to Mahayana Buddhism. This is the diamond vehicle. It's primarily practiced in Tibet, Bhutan, and Mongolia. His Holiness the Dalai Lama would be a Vajrayana Buddhist, and this is a tradition that through ritual and intense practices may liberate a soul from samsara in one lifetime. And Zen Buddhism originates in China as Chan Buddhism and later spread to Japan through meditations with zazen and koans, which are like not quite riddles, but stories that are meant to shock the mind and wake one up. What is the sound of one hand clapping as a koan that you might know, might be familiar with? Zen aims to cultivate an intuitive understanding of reality and presence at the moment. There's a lot of these, y'all. Pure Land Buddhism is another Mahayana tradition. It emphasizes devotion to Amitabha Buddha, who creates the heavenly realm. And this is actually a very, very common form of Buddhism. And it's important to note here that we relate Buddhism to meditation so much, but most Buddhists do not meditate. In fact, Pure Land Buddhism is primarily about chanting to the Amitabha Buddha to be liberated from the cycle of life and death and rebirth and to become a bodhisattva in the Pure Land. And then lastly, secular Western or convert Buddhism. While not a formal school, it needs to be mentioned because it's the form of Buddhism we will often encounter here in the West. It focuses on meditation, the cultivation of focus, practical benefits of Buddhist philosophy while incorporating a multidisciplinary, eclectic approach to practice. Insofar as this is a school, it would be closest to the Mahayana understanding, and though it may or may not have an emphasis on enlightenment or higher metaphysical ideas as an intense goal, it is common throughout the West, though, and it's incredibly diverse and eclectic. But each of these, well, all of their differences, hold on to those four noble truths, which you might summarize as this: life sucks. Here's why. You could do something about it. I think I missed one. Goodness. But that's essentially the idea of the Four Noble Truths. This is the liberation from pain and suffering. The story of Siddhartha is not just about the journey of one man, but a universal story of seeking refuge. How do we break away from the things that burden us down? Religions could be defined as a prescriptive idea for what wrongs and woes meet the world, and then offering some kind of solution. We do that here in our own way. We speak of community and justice, but the Buddha here speaks of collective liberation through freeing ourselves from that sense of illusion, that we are separate from anything, with something as simple as a gesture touching the earth. We have been doing meditation for a while here, friends, and the thing about meditation is sometimes we think of it as focus or breathing. It's really about doing nothing, honestly. Meditation is about freeing ourselves from being held on to thoughts and distractions and feelings that pull us with them, and to let them arrive and to let them pass. Not to hold on to, or even to hold on to the idea of not holding on to them. It is to simply be free, kind of like a pipe with running water in it or a river. The water arrives and then it departs. So it is with meditation, friends. And so I invite you to find yourself in an earth-touching pose of yourself. Of course, we're not outside, but you may still become aware of what is holding you, the chair, the ground. You may close your eyes or keep them softly focused on a point before you. Then we'll just breathe be. You don't have to do anything. Breathing in, breathing out. Peace, love. And as we breathe, let us hear these words from Thich Nhat Hanh, a poem entitled Earth Touching. Here is the foot of a tree. Here is an empty, quiet place. Here is a cushion. Friend, why don't you sit down? Sit upright. Sit with solidity. Sit in peace. Don't let your thoughts lift you up into the air. Sit so that you can really touch the earth and be one with her. You may like to smile. Earth will transmit to you her solidity, her peace, and her joy with your mindful breathing. With your peaceful smile, you sustain the mudra of earth touching. There were times when you didn't do well, sitting on the earth, but it was as if you were floating in the air, you who used to go in circles in the triple world and be drawn into the ocean of illusion. But earth is always patient, one-hearted. Earth is still waiting for you, because earth has been waiting for you during the last trillion lives. That is why she can wait for you for any other length of time. She knows that finally you will come back to her one day. She will welcome you always fresh and green, exactly like the first time, because love never says, "This is the last." Earth is a loving mother. She will never stop waiting for you. Do go back to her. You will be like that tree. The leaves, the branches, and the flowers of your soul will be fresh and green once you enter the mudra of earth touching. The empty path welcomes you, fragrant with grass and little flowers, the path paved with paddy fields, still bearing the marks of your childhood, the fragrance of mother's hand. Walk leisurely, peacefully. Your feet should deeply touch the earth. Don't let your thoughts lift you up into the air. Go back to the path every moment. The path is a friend. She will transmit to you her solidity, her peace. With your deep breathing, you sustain the mudra of earth touching, walking as if you were kissing the earth with your feet, as if you were massaging the earth. The marks left by your feet will be like the marks of an emperor's seal, calling for now to go back to here, so that life will be present, so that blood will bring the color of love to your face, so that the wonders of life will be manifested, and all afflictions will be transformed into peace and joy. There were times when you did not succeed walking on the empty path, but you were floating in the air because you used to get lost in samsara and drawn into the world of illusion. But the beautiful path is always present, always waiting for you to come back. The path which is so familiar, so faithful. It knows deeply that you will come back one day. It will be joyful to welcome you back. It will be as fresh and as beautiful as the first time, for love never says, "This is the last." that path is you, friend. That is why it will never be tired of waiting, whether it is covered now with red dust or with the autumn leaves or icy snow. Do go back to the path. I know you will be like that tree. The leaves, the trunk, the branches, the blossoms of your soul will be fresh and beautiful once you enter the mudra of earth touching. When you are ready, friends, I invite you to rejoin us in the space. Will you join me in a moment of prayerful contemplation, friends, as we hear prayers of the people, extend the spirit of prayer and love around this world. Spirit of life and love and all good growing things beneath the star. Spirit of change driven towards love and life and connection. Earth holding everything. We gather in an exploration of presence, seeking you, seeking ourselves and one another, not to wander this world alone, isolated, but to speak, to hold hands, even if we are as shadows holding hands, here for a time and to fade away. But today, may we have hearts centered in love. May we know that we are worthy, that we are that love manifest, and that it's made real when we make it real. When we live, we prophesy with our actions of simple, everyday kindness. We magnify you and our own hearts in turn. And may we have room for all that burdens and tears one down. May we have room for all that lifts one up and illuminates the room. And may it be, friends, that peace be with you, that love be with you, that all those who struggle in this world under gunfire or chains, from Gaza to Israel to Ukraine to Myanmar, to people right here in this country and all around the world, and right here in this room, for all hearts that break, may there be enough love, may there be enough you, may another day dawn and a way open out of no way. So may it be. Amen.
I have a reading. It's entitled Recommendation, and it's by Thich Nhat Hanh. Promise me this day, promise me now while the sun is overhead exactly at the zenith. Promise me, even as they strike you down with a mountain of hatred and violence, even as they step on you and crush you like a worm, even as they break you apart. Remember, friend, remember, humanity is not our enemy. The only thing worthy of you is compassion, invincible, limitless, unconditional. Hatred will never let you face the beast in humanity. One day, when you face this beast alone with your courage intact, your eyes kind, untroubled, even as no one sees them, out of your smile will bloom a flower. And those who love you will behold you across 10,000 worlds of birth and dying. Alone again, I will go on with bent head, knowing that love has become eternal. On the long, rough road, the sun and moon will continue to shine.
May let those words marinate for a second, friends. Breathe in that promise. It's a promise connecting you, illuminating our interdependence, our interbeing with all things, the air on your skin, the microbial life sustaining your metabolism. You have the ocean in your veins, the storm in your nervous system. All that sustains you is sustained in turn. Down and up and around are not all things bound up, not only dependent as separate beings. These lines of relation weave us into a vast whole, dwarfing the human drama and passions that dominate our attention, like the whole of the cosmos crying for us to remember, remember. That late teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, so beloved, taught of this interbeing, of how we and all things are, This is a key idea in certain branches of Buddhism, particularly Thich Nhat Hanh's own Truk Lam Buddhism of Vietnam, part of the greater vehicle of the Mahayana tradition and informed by Zen practices in the Chan tradition as well. Vietnamese Buddhism is quite eclectic on its own, but old and sturdy and revolutionized with Thich Nhat Hanh. Buddhist metaphysics run a wide range, but Mahayana traditions, which include Zen and Pure Land and most Western convert paths, and arguably Tibetan Buddhism, generally maintain the lack of substantive distinctions between different entities. Our separateness is an illusion. Beautiful and terrible at once, this illusion, necessary in a way for the living of stories, perhaps, but ultimately for its tendency towards change, characterized by suffering. And in the midst of all this illusion is that idea that there is a real distinction between ourselves and the world. One can work their way to this point in all kinds of ways, but fundamentally to be into the world is to, in some degree, change, and to change is to struggle, and to struggle is often to suffer. It's not to be confused with the devil, this suffering, nor that Mara force. It isn't some kind of evil thing. It is simply part of the wheel of samsara, the cycle of fates, of births and deaths and rebirths, no more evil than a tornado or a star. It simply is, and so it is that we simply are. This idea that we are all interconnected with all other things isn't likely to be new for you if you've been here for a while. You may have come to such conclusions on your own. A quiet mind receives this readily. I reckon we can observe the networks of ecologies, how plants feed animals which die to the soil and nourish the plants, how predation affects ecologies, how if there were no coyotes to eat the deer, the coyotes run amok and eat the deer run amok and eat everything. Balance is accrued through process and change, and we can notice this in ecological systems. We can know how the air we breathe comes from the photosynthetic powers of the plant world, how they take in light and water and soil and turn it into sugar for themselves and give us breathable oxygen, which fills your lungs and rusts your car. It does. We can think of how our planet, the whole planet, so big and massive it's incomprehensible, was formed from the rocky debris falling around a newborn star. We can learn about how our sun was formed from a cloud of interstellar dust that was disturbed by a giant distant star's explosion, heralding its death to the cosmos, an end into a beginning. And so it is, we simply are. Stardust and so much more. His Holiness the Dalai Lama once stated that if science opposes something different, that Buddhism will have to change. So it is with Unitarian Universalism as well. It probably goes without saying. In our tradition, we say that love is the heart of this faith, that our connections are sacred, that pluralism, equity, transformation, justice, interdependence, and generosity are the virtues that guide our hearts and heads and hands imperfectly towards beloved community, where all can be welcome, a sort of pure land of our own, but here, now. In so many words, so it is with many expressions of Buddhism. It's a little wonder there is so much crossover in our congregations. We've been blessed by this faith, from Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Transcendentalists. I will say that Unitarianism is the state religion of Transylvania, but that is a whole different sermon. Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Transcendentalists reading the Vedas and the Dharma in the Concord Library, to our own Dharma meditation group here at Second Unitarian, which Forrest helps to hold Wednesdays at 6. I digress. We have been blessed. However, one arrives at that realization of our oneness. In the Dharma, the Buddha suggests that such an awakening must leave one naturally compassionate. For this is no mere metaphor. This is reality. Nothing exists in isolation. Not the world outside of you, nor the world inside of you. Even the weird, sticky, and scary parts, all bound up to one. And so, becoming aware that all of this is bound up as a whole, what more can one do but become that love at the center. They are it. You are it. Everything is it. The one becomes the many become the one, and so on and so forth, and so we are. Love moves the stone, love breaks the chain, love becomes eternal, and we are humbled and exalted in this knowing. This love is no mere sentimentality, y'all. It is an active and engaged living force characterized by courage and made real in the way that we live. The Buddhism of Thich Nhat Hanh models this ethic well, revolutionizing and popularizing the path, increasing interfaith dialogue, encouraging a compassionate approach to the problems of everyday life and for everyone. This is the case. This is practical love, made real in the world through our regular return to awareness, shaped by our actions, magnified as we help others to awaken. It is the remembering that we are always arriving and always departing, and arriving again, always in process and always part of the bigger picture. And as we are part of this flow of time and this flow of matter and this flow of reality, this is the running river. This is the river you can never step in twice. Same river, nor the same river you can never step in once. If you would argue that it's changing even as you step in it, you are that river too. The Greeks knew this. Some of the Greeks converted to Buddhism, actually. That's also another sermon. But change, this impermanence, there is something sublime to this understanding. But also, this is from whence we lose. We are lost. We break and are broken down. But with radical acceptance, this fear begins to fall away. Radical acceptance is part of renouncing the painful, burning grip of attachment that can lay on a heart. Radical acceptance leads towards more radical compassion for others, for ourselves, for the very beginning of any particular moment, whatever is happening. Consider this poem by Thich Nhat Hanh. Bumispasha. Death comes with his impressive scythe and says, "You should be afraid of me." I look up and ask, "Why should I be afraid of you?" "Because I will make you dead. I will make you non-existent." "How can you make me non-existent?" Death does not answer. He swings his impressive scythe. I say, "I come and I go, then I come again and I go again. I always come back. You can neither make me exist nor non-exist." "How do you know that you will come back again?" Death asks. "I know because I've done that countless times," I say. "How do I know that you are telling the truth? Who can be the witness?" Death frowns. I touch the earth and say, "Earth is the witness. She is my mother." Suddenly, death hears the music. Suddenly, death hears the birds singing from all directions. Suddenly, death notices the tree blossoming. Earth makes herself apparent to death and smiles lovingly to him. Death melts in the loving gaze of the earth. Beloved, touch the earth every time you get scared. Touch her deeply, and your sorrow will melt away. Touch her deeply, and you will touch the deathless. To touch the earth is such a central mudra gesture practice that it's on the statue, the common statue you see all the time. Touching the earth to acknowledge our interconnection, such a simple and profound gesture with a simple and profound impact. It almost sounds like we are being told to touch grass. The catch, not only must we touch the grass, but we must cultivate the courage and compassion to navigate life's burdens. Monks don't often just meditate on nothing. Oftentimes this is what we do, but monks meditate on all kinds of things. Sometimes they hold scary ideas or images in their head to know that death is part of life, that dissolution happens. And so this can be hard. It can be hard to be a monk, certainly. It can be hard just to be. This is the idea of dukkha, and to be able to accept this radically requires some real radical acceptance. We are all going to die someday. This isn't the good news you maybe wanted to hear this morning. But you know it's true, and so do I. We know that someday, many, many, many years from now, the sun will run out of hydrogen and begin to expand, consuming close planets, boiling away our oceans, until it's cast off its shell, scorching the solar system, leaving it a dead thing or nothing had happened. Maybe we'll be out of here by then. Maybe something new will happen. I don't know. I know that what we are as a human animal will change because evolution is real. And you, believe it or not, are still participating in the process of evolution, especially if you're having children. Good for you. But I guarantee you, your progeny, generations upon generations, a million years down the line, will not look genetically similar to us. It's just how things are. It's dukkha. That might even be kind of disturbing to think that your whatever grandkids are going to be not human beings as we understand them genetically. Maybe they call themselves that, but they will be different. That's okay. It has to be. What else is there to do but to accept with a radical heart difference, the falling away of things and the arriving of things within ourselves, without ourselves, and to not arrive at compassion for this. Now, this also means that, somebody hurts me and I hunger for revenge. Somebody loves me and I lose myself in them. Someone leaves me and they take more than half of me with them. And so our attachments, even the sweet ones, even the saccharine ones, can hurt us in the end. Now, this is not to say do not love, do not desire. That's a silly thing to suggest. You will love and you will be loved. You will desire and be desired. You will lose and you will be lost. All of this is a part of life that you will find and be found too. The Buddha is, in his words, like a doctor identifying an ailment and offering a cure. And that cure from the Buddha is patience, reflection, the cultivation of compassion and community with others, calling us to the simple practice of touching the earth, awakening our kinship with all things, opening our hearts to everything, to the presence, to the love at the center of it all. While Buddha nature is often said to take lifetimes to realize, some traditions differ. The whole Vajrayana diamond vehicle method is resplendent with intricate ritual. It's intended to awaken a soul in as little as a single lifetime. In this, we also find some similarities in our tradition, for while the particulars differ drastically, we too have long held that we each have the capacity to realize love, to change, to return to community, to realize our oneness, to recommit to the common good, to return to love. Be we Buddhist or not, such an idea can ground any spiritual journey. It is at the very least a reminder that love lies waiting under your nose. We are made of relationships extending outward to relate with all things, and so it is that we are, and as we will become, for we are always arriving, always departing, as are all things. And in light of this, the beauty and the terror and all in between, what else is there to feel but compassion? Compassion is the only thing that would become us. And so, friends, I leave us with this adaptation of a practice from Tibetan Buddhism, the metta meditation. Metta means benevolence. Honestly, it's kind of ironic. There's also a Buddhist term called magga, but that's a different thing. Metta, which is not the Facebook company, metta means benevolence, 2 T's. Metta, benevolence, amity, friendliness, goodwill, most commonly translated as loving kindness. The meditation begins like this. I'll let our indulgent singers come forward because they're a part of this too. Friends, I invite you may stay seated. This is more of a meditative affair. I invite you to return to an earth-touching pose. And feel the support beneath you. Simply be. Don't try to do anything, but find the love inside you. Where is compassion called? As we sing into that love. Sing it to life, a wish, an affirmation, a promise, a prayer. I'll invite Sarah to share our words on the screen. Together, friends.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness.
As we continue, we will extend this compassion from ourselves, cultivate and then scatter, drawing the circle wider beyond our body and immediate community of care into this wider world with so much need, challenging ourselves to extend compassion towards those our reactive, wounded heart might consider undeserving. Has somebody hurt you? Extend through this barrier built by hatred, greed, and delusion, be it constructed by us or by others. Penetrate that gloom with the radiance of compassion. May we be filled.
May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
At last, we will extend this further to all beings. This can be hard. It is a call to relate the self to all things, to the pulse of life and becoming, but this is the premise. This is the goal. For it is from this place of understanding that real change begins. A place that feels like, is shaped like a beloved community on the horizon. May we
Be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
May our gathering this morning be a blessing for one and all. As we extinguish the chalice and prepare to face the coming week, I'd like to share these words from a piece entitled "The Moment of Magic," written by the Reverend Victoria Safford. Now is the moment of magic, and here's a blessing. We already possess all the gifts we need. We've already received our presents: ears to hear music, eyes to behold lights, hands to build true peace on earth, and to hold each other tight in love. And now Sarah will share the words for our doxology.
Every heart in every word, declare that fear and hate are gone. Break the chain and free the hand, till all on earth may be as one.
Prophetic Church, this world awaits your liberating ministry and your liberated heart. As we go from this place, may we be fools for justice and fools for love. Goodness gracious. Fools for love and pilgrims for justice. And until we meet again, may we rock, roll, and move towards that spirit of beloved community on the horizon.